Tutties! Hello and welcome to the Esmée Jumpsuit tutorial. This is the second design in my line of sewing patterns. And I'm an American living in Paris and working in the fashion industry. And my desire is to take what's on the streets of Paris and bring it to you so that everyone can have a slice of the chicness. And of course, the go-to jumpsuit is a fashion must, especially here in Paris. And so I wanted to create a jumpsuit that was chic and that could be worn from day to night. What I've noticed about Parisian style in particular, it's the way the garments are worn. They're very versatile. Literally the same garment can be worn to the office, but can also translate and be worn in the Parisian nightlife or when you go out. So I really wanted to create the jumpsuit based on this. And let's get into it. So the jumpsuit features wide leg pants, inseam pockets, elastic at the waist to fit the different body shapes, and my favorite, the bow in the back. J'adore. I'm obsessed with this bow and it's super easy to sew actually. And I did want to mention that on the pants pattern piece, on the pattern itself, it includes a line where you can lengthen or shorten the pants. So if you want to, you can actually cut the pattern and make it a romper. And oh my gosh, y'all, the photo shoot. So we started at the Jardin de Palais Royal. And then we went nearby to the Louvre. And then we ended with an outfit change at Saint-Michel in Notre Dame. Such a cute area. It's in the 5th arrondissement of Paris. And here's a behind the scenes of me with my model and my friend actually. So we had so much fun creating the pattern and doing the photo shoot. So hopefully you have just as much fun sewing it and that you really like it. It's super easy to sew. So let's start. On y va. So once you have downloaded the pattern, you are now ready to print. And I want to show you how you can print just your size in the pattern. So the first step is to open the pattern in Adobe Acrobat Reader. It's actually free to download on the Adobe website. And as you can see here, we have all the sizes and they are color coded. So normally you would print out the pattern, right? And you would follow your color and then cut your size. So I'll show you how to print out just your size, which I feel like is so much better. So the first step is to go to the panel on the left and click the layers icon. Okay, and then you should now see a list of all the sizes displayed. So for this example, we will choose to make a size 10. So now you will deselect every size that is not a size 10. So starting with size 0, we will deselect 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, and 14. So as you can see here, the only size that is visible is the size 10. So like I said, I really like to do this before I print out a pattern. And I also wanted to mention something that is very important, and it is the test square. So you may want to print off this page first. The test square is going to let you know if the scale is correct. So the square should measure 2 inches by 2 inches, which means that your pattern is being printed correctly and that your finished garment will fit correctly. And here we have our assembly guide. If you want to, you can print this one out as well. And so basically it's going to show you how to lay out the pages for the pattern. So as you can see here, we have A1 through A9. And then for our letters, we have A all the way to E. So now we are ready to put the pattern together. And what I like to do is to cut that right side of the page. So that way that edge and that triangle matches perfectly with the other triangle and forms a diamond. And once everything is matched up, we can tape it in place. And I'm just going to fast forward it here to save some time. And for the rest of the pages, I actually cut off the tops as well as the right sides. Okay, oh my gosh, guys, I'm really sorry about this. So the clip is gonna end here soon because my camera cut off and I didn't notice. But what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your rows A, B, C, D, and E, and then you're gonna tape them together just like your assembly guide here. And yes, from there you'll cut out your pattern pieces. And once you've cut your pattern pieces, you are now ready to cut your fabric. And so I want to show you how much fabric you need to cut for each piece. So your strap is going to be cut 2, the front bodice facing 1, front bodice 1, the front elastic tape casing 1, front pant 2, back tie will be cut 4, pocket will also be cut 4, back bodice 1, back bodice facing 1, back elastic tape casing is 1, and then back pant is going to be cut 2. And here is your fabric layout plan. And as you can see here, it's almost as if it's in 3 sections, okay? So for the first section, we have our bodices with our facings. For the middle section, we have our pants patterns with our pockets, our elastic tape casing, and our strap. And then for that bottom section there, we are going to be cutting out the back ties, okay? So I'll start with the first section at the top and show you how to cut that. Okay, and what you will do is you'll take your left side of the fabric and your right side of the fabric and fold them both to the middle. So the two selvages should be touching. And you'll start with your front bodice, place that on the fold. Front bodice facing, place that on the fold. Back bodice facing, also on that fold. And then your back bodice piece also on the fold. So super easy. All you have to do is pin in place and then cut it out. And now we are cutting out the middle section. So I did want to mention I'm doing something here that's very important. You want to always make sure that the grain line is parallel to the selvage. And this is very important because it can affect the way the garment hangs, the way it feels, the way it fits. So it's always important that the grain line is parallel to the selvage. So now I'm just pinning the pattern to the fabric. And I did want to also mention that if you notice, my fabric is just a regular cotton unbleached muslin fabric. And I chose this fabric choice because I feel like when I'm doing like tutorials or something, sometimes if the fabric is too busy, it's hard to follow along. So I just decided to make it super plain. The thread I'm going to be using is red thread, so you can see every single stitch that I'm doing. And hopefully it's more clear. It'll make the tutorial a bit more clear. And right now I'm going in and making sure I'm marking all of my notches. I know we have a notch for the pocket, which is going to be very important. So that way we know where to place the pocket, and also for the hem. And I didn't record me cutting out the strap, but make sure you cut out the strap and that middle section as well. And last but not least, the bottom section. And here, as you can see, we have 2 layers of fabric. So whatever fabric you have left over, make 2 layers. And then what you'll do is you'll take your back tie pattern and of course, make sure that your grain line is parallel with the selvage there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pin and then cut it out. And then after you pin and cut it out, take the pattern again and you will lay it one more time. Again, making sure the grain line is parallel to the selvage, and you will pin and cut. And you will have 4 pieces. Okay, and before we get started with the tutorial, I just wanted to show you that each pattern comes with sewing instructions. And I actually would advise that you print them out if you would like, and so that way you can follow along with the video tutorial. As you can see, each instruction is illustrated, so that way you could follow along step by step. Okay, and first we will start with the straps. So I'll show you really quickly what the pattern looks like. So as you can see here, the front is the pointy part, and then this is the back. And the middle line there is the fold line. Okay, so very simply, we will fold the pattern in half. So with the right sides together, you'll fold it in half like so. And then literally what we'll do is sew along this edge with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So let's pin. Okay, and I'm just fast forwarding it a little bit here. So what you'll do after you'll pin, you'll sew it, and then you'll also do the same to the other side. So now we are finished sewing our straps, and I want to show you a trick to turn it right side out in case you're having difficulty. You'll need a safety pin, and so the first step is to open the safety pin and insert it into the strap tunnel. So just like this, just slip it through there. And then what you'll do is you'll close the safety pin, and then you'll just pass it through the strap like so. And so basically, as you're pushing the safety pin through, you're pulling the fabric over. So it's like you're pushing and then pulling. Push and pull. Okay, so that was super easy. And so what you'll do is you'll remove the safety pin. And then you would do this to the other strap, and then we'll go and iron it. And then here, just really quickly, I wanted to show you how I iron the straps. So now we are working on the next step. We'll be working on the back ties. Okay, so for this you should have cut 4, 2 for each tie, and we'll start working on this first one here. So what you'll need to do is match the 2 pattern pieces with right sides together, and then starting from this notch, you'll sew from here to here and all the way to here with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So basically from here to this notch you'll leave open. So we'll start pinning here at that first notch. And once you're done pinning, you're ready to sew, starting at this first notch. Okay, so we have sewn the first tie, and once it is finished, it will look like this. And remember, we started from that notch and just sewed all the way around here like so. So for the next step, you will need a pair of scissors, and you can follow along in the guide if you like. What we're going to do is we are going to clip at the beginning of this seam here. So we'll be clipping to where the seam starts. Not through it, but to it. Just all the way up to the seam line like so. And when you're finished, it will look like this. So then after, what you can do is turn it right side out. But before, I wanted to show you what I do to get my point extra pointy here. So what we're going to actually do is trim the seam allowance, and you can trim it to about 1/4 on each side. So we're trimming the seam allowance to make it less bulky and to get a finer point. Okay, so now we can turn it right side out. Okay, and I'll speed it up just a bit. So you're just turning it right side out to the best of your ability, because I have a trick to make that pointed corner super pointy. And so what you'll need is a chopstick, and we'll take this chopstick and we'll literally poke it into that corner just to make it more pointy and sharp. So I like a chopstick, and you'll just wiggle it around. I like a chopstick because it's pointy but not too pointy, because we definitely don't want to pierce the fabric or cause a hole. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll take the seam allowance, just pull it out there like so, and then next we'll go ahead on and iron it and do the same to the other side. And I wanted to quickly show you how I actually go in and iron both of the ties. So we will begin to work on the back of the jumpsuit. And so for this step, we'll sew it all in one. So we have the back tie here. And what we will do is we will match these two notches. So just line it up with the edge here. And then the edge here as well, edge to edge. Okay, and so far it will look like this. Okay, and what we could do now at this point, we can actually pin the tie in place here. So for the next step, we'll actually take our strap, and we will take the edge of the strap and line it up exactly with that notch. And as you can see, the point at the bottom should be facing this way, just like this. So now we can pin our strap into place as well. So let's go to the next step, which can be a little difficult. You do have to be a little careful with this one. So for this, what you'll do is you will take your back facing, and with the back facing, we will sew it on top. And basically, we're going to be sandwiching the strap and the tie. So for this, we will move the tie out of the way, but keeping this part lined up. Okay, and if you want to, you could go ahead on and pin that part down. But it's just very important that we move the tie out of the way as much as possible. And then from here, we could take our back facing and place it here on top. And what we will do is we will sew here, catching that corner, moving the tie out the way, and then sewing all the way here through the both layers with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. But before, let's work on the other side here. And finally, you can place your facing on top, and you can pin it in place like so. Okay, so we will sew here, all the way to here, and remember not catching the ties. Okay, so we are at the sewing machine and we're ready to sew it all together. And I did want to mention about the tape that I have on my sewing machine in case you're wondering. Because I bought the machine in France, all of the seam allowance lines are in centimeters. And usually when I make my patterns, I always use a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I just use the tape there to help guide me to always line it up with the 1/2 inch seam allowance. And when you get to the corner edge, about 1/2 inch away, you can sink your needle in and actually turn the fabric like so. And then, of course, always checking, making sure that the tie is not being caught. You can continue to sew. And when you get to the next corner at a 1/2 inch there from the edge, sink the needle, pivot, check that all the tie is out of the way, and finish sewing this last part here. And once you're done sewing, it will look like this. And if you're following along, we are on step 9 of the instructions. And here we are cutting little clips into the curve. But before we do this, it's important that we turn this right side out and check that we sew the straps and the ties correctly. Because once we clip, there's no going back. And as you can see, everything is perfect. So we'll turn it inside out and we'll do the clips along the curve. Clipping it will just release the tension and make the curve way more smooth and flat. I'm going to use my scissors, but if you want, you can use little snippers, whatever you prefer. So the first step is just to make sure, everything is out of the way and that you're only cutting through the 2 layers of the seam allowance. Again, just cutting to that stitching line, and I'm cutting every 3/4 of an inch away, but if you want, you can even do 1/2 inch. So when we are done making our clips, we'll turn it right side out. Okay, and here is the back so far. If it still has a bit too much tension, you can go in and always add more clips. But for me, I think it's okay because I'll go ahead on and iron it next. Okay, so let's iron the back here. And I will say ironing after each step is completely optional. You don't have to do it. But for me, I will say I really like to iron because I feel like it takes a garment from looking handmade to looking professionally made or even store-bought. So it might take more effort, but I feel like it's definitely worth it. Okay, so our back is completely done with the 2 ties. And if you're following along with the instructions, we're actually on step 10 at this point. So basically, we're going to attach the 2 straps to the front there. So first, like you see in the picture here, we will turn the back this way. So the facing should be facing up. Okay, like so. So with the facing upwards, what we will do next is we'll pin the straps to the right side of the front. Okay, and so the point should be facing this way. And what we will do is we will match the straps perfectly in between those two notches there. And then once we have it placed, we can go ahead on and pin it. Okay, match and pin. Okay, so for the next step, it's actually going to be to place the front facing with right sides together on top. And we're going to be sandwiching the straps just like this. Okay, so you're going to sew here, pivot, sew here, and then pivot and sew. So let's pin this one in place as well. Okay, so let's go sew. So once you're done sewing, it will look like this. And just like we did the last time, whenever there's a curve, we go in and make small clips. Okay, so now we'll turn it right side out. Okay, now that we have our front done, we can go iron it. And really quickly, I'll show you how I iron. And actually at center back, there was still a little bit of tension, so I went in and added a few more snips. Okay, so our front is completely finished and pressed, and it will look like this. And this is the back. Okay, so now we are on step 12. So we will be sewing the front and the back side seams. Okay, so the first step is going to be to put right sides together. Match facings to facings, like so. So we're matching the front facing with the back facing. Okay. And this piece of the tie is kind of flapping. So what we'll do is we'll just go ahead on and pin it down like so. Okay, so right sides together, front and back, match them perfectly. And here at the seam, you can take one of the seam allowances and push it down, and another one of the seam allowances and push it up just to make it less bulky. Again, just match that seam perfectly and pin it. Okay, great. So now we can match our facings next and pin them. Okay, so we have pinned our seam as well as our facings. So now let's pin our side seams. So we'll take our back side seam with our front side seam, make sure everything's lined up and match them, and we'll pin. Okay, and once everything is pinned, you can go to your sewing machine and you will sew from here all the way to here with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, okay? So let's do the other side as well. And once sewn, it will look like this. And at this point, if you want to go ahead on and serge or zigzag stitch the seam allowances, you can. And let's turn it right side out and see what we have here. And if you want, you can iron this seam that you just sewn. But very exciting, we have sewn our top and it's completely finished. And here's me ironing the side seam.